In this tutorial, I'd like to take you through some of the different image effects that you can apply and try these out as you are watching this tutorial. They're pretty easy to incorporate into your site. And what I have here just for this setup is I've got this site that I'm pretty much finished building. What I'm going to do on a tutorial starting next week is I'll build another layout that has some more components to it and more design to it, because this is about as far as I really can take this one. I mean, I guess I could add in an image at the top or something for a header and make it look nicer, but this is the one that if you've been following along in the tutorials, you can actually get pretty far with this design, just because simple is usually better and usable, and it's responsive as well. So if you look at this example, you can see that it is responsive, and it does have a little drop down menu, and it's got a gradient at the top and a text effect. An image would be better here. And now I've added in a full screen image in this particular division tag area, and this is what I want to apply some effects to. So I guess first thing here is you want to get W3 Schools open, and let's start with the opacity right here. So I'm on CSS, and the CSS tutorial, the first one before you get to advanced. Again, I'm just kind of skipping around here, picking out things that I think you might find useful. So opacity, and I'll scroll down here. And most of these you probably understand by now that you can apply these different CSS rules to a lot of different tags. In this particular example, they're applying the opacity rule to an image tag. Looks just like that. So anytime you see this, you see an HTML tag, and then you see a bracket, and then you see some specifications here like the opacity, and then the closing bracket. That means you can take this tag and put it into your style sheet, whether it's in your HTML code or it's in your .css style. So I'll go ahead and take this, and let me switch over here to brackets, and I'll just drop this at the top under the style tag. Again, my recommendation, best practice would be to incorporate all of your styles into the .css style sheet. For demonstration purposes, a lot of times I'll just drop it into the HTML to save time, so I'm just working with one file here. And I already do have the image in the site. Obviously, I just showed that to you, so let me do a file save. Back over here, here's what the image looks like. Looks like a 56 Thunderbird, and there is the opacity. So that drops that down. Now, you could find that useful if you're doing like a portfolio and you want some thumbnails or some smaller images to be a little bit faded out, and then when you go click and access the bigger image, it would be the full image, without any opacity. Other times it could work as a background. Now, my general recommendation with a full screen background image, like if you want to use this as a full screen background, is that you make your adjustments in Photoshop to the actual image. So you go into Photoshop, resize it, and then put that in as an actual image. What I'm showing you here would work fine for like a background and a division tag, or for a full screen image, which is what I have right here. That's just actually sitting on the page, but not as much for the background. But you can see that does create a really cool effect there, and changes the way the image looks just with CSS. Okay, check out a couple of the others. Let's go down to the CSS Advanced, and rounded corners is something you could try out. With division tags and different boxes. I think they actually have it in here as well on the image effects. So scroll down and you'll see style images on the bottom, on the left hand side there, CSS style images, and here's where you can add in the rounded borders for these. So basically what I'm doing here is, if I want to add in what you see and try this out, you don't have to take the full tag now because I already have that in my code. So all I'd have to do is take this particular rule, copy this back over here, and then insert this into this right here. Now, you might have seen that warning. Some of these tags you have to double check in certain browsers. Most of them will work, the border radius, the scalable, the responsive images, things like that. You might have a problem with opacity, but again, just check it in different browsers. So I did a border radius on there. Let me make it a little bit larger so we can see it. I'll put it at 15 pixels, do a file save, refresh, and now check out that corner right there. You can see it puts just a little rounded corner on it. So that might work well for you just to add a little more interest to your design, and that is going to be rounded corners. Let me scroll down. There's thumbnail images that you can put on there, and responsive images. This will be probably the last one I'll do. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, there's like little postcards and things like that. There's the opacity. It's also on this image on, or text on an image filters that you can apply. So, you know, all really interesting things to try. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Here's the hover that would work well for a portfolio. Don't know why you would really use that flip the image very much. And responsive gallery. So there's a lot of things to try out. So let's put in a responsive image here. Let me go back to the top. Here's responsive image. So I'm going to take the max width of 100% and the height of auto, and then I'll come in here and add that code. Now, one thing I will mention, again, I'm going to record some tutorials on this since we're getting into the towards the end of the semester. We still got about 7 weeks or so, but what you want to start doing is adding in some basic graphics to your site, and I'll show you how to do that with Photoshop in the next couple weeks. You know, it's not really a graphic design class. This is more on the coding, the HTML, CSS, but it's hard to really design sites without getting a little bit into Photoshop. So a lot of what I'm showing you here as far as like the sizing of images, you may be better off doing that in Photoshop and then applying some of the CSS. For example, I would not recommend that you take a photo directly off of your digital camera or your phone, drop it into your website, and then use this percentage to resize it, because remember that it's still going to be loading the original size image, which is probably going to be too big. So you want to resize that. You could use one of the free image editing browser-based programs that I have mentioned in tutorials, or you could use Photoshop if you have access to that. So I put in this, and let's see if it works. It works really nicely, and you can see, you might say, well, why is it, you know, it's 100%, why is it not taking up the whole screen? Well, it wants to display 100% of the width and the height no matter what size. So this is what you can see, it fits in there now. And you can go above 100 with this, you know, if you think that might fit a little bit better. So I'll save that. So you can see that that's still responsive, but you see a little more of the image that way. But when you get larger, it'll start cutting off the image a little bit. You'll get some scrolling. But that's a responsive image with some rounded corners, and then the opacity set to 50%. So that's really probably all I need to show you in this tutorial. I think what I would recommend is you know, look through these under the CSS style images and see if there's anything that interests you that you think you might want to try out in your site. And then let me know if you have any questions. And you may be incorporating some of these into your project that's going to be due in a couple weeks, or you may not necessarily required. It's more up to the design that you are doing. All right, that is it for this tutorial on styling images with CSS.